You're almost there. At the coveted 4 letters CASA. Third-year articles. You passed CTA. You passed IAC. You're on track. Everyone says you're doing well. But every morning, you wake up with this weight in your chest. You chose CA because it was safe, secure, respectable. Your parents were proud. Your friends were impressed. But somewhere along the way, you lost yourself. You had this thing you loved. Maybe it was writing. Maybe it was speaking. Maybe it was building something with your hands. But you buried it. Because CA was the smart choice. The safe choice. And now you're here. On the path everyone told you to take. Miserable. So, what do you do when the safe path is slowly killing you? Once more today, we are joined by Mohamed Ebrahim Tayob, CASA, founder and host of the Chat EBT Show, and entrepreneur. We chat about what it means to do the thing you love and why you should today. We also chat about Steve Jobs' failure story that led to his being fired from Apple, why EBT recently left corporate, the story of how he started his podcast, Chat EBT, why starting is the gift not to the world but to yourself, his starting his fractional IA consultancy, You Hate Admin, his experience working for a US firm remotely, transferable skills from his podcast work into his other professional work, business stories of failure towards success, and more. I hope you enjoy. My travelers on the road to CASA. Quick one. Quote for the week. EBT implores us to consider what we do with passion, what we do well, therefore. And I heard an interesting quote from Winston Churchill that echoed the same sentiment. It went like this. There comes a moment in each of our lifetime where we are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a chance to do a very special thing, unique to us and fitted to our talents. What a tragedy if that moment meets us unprepared and unqualified for what could have been our finest hour. Consider that. And also, if you have not already, listen to part 1, link to the show notes. With that, on to part 2. You have now spoken to so many people, so many business leaders, so many people that have so much wisdom. What are, maybe you could even pick out 1 or 2, what is the salient lesson or lessons that you've gotten from this period so far?
I'm actually really glad you asked this.
Sure.
Right. So similar to you, when I started the podcast, right? It was essentially to hear stories. Right. Everybody has these stories. And I believe our lives are made up of all these little stories. Those are our memories. And we think back and we have all these stories that we want to tell our kids and our grandkids. Right. But similar, there is some really awesome stories here in South Africa. And I think of all these business, when we think about these great business stories, right? We think of, again, Steve Jobs and Apple. We think of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook.
Yeah.
But we have some really awesome stories here in South Africa, right? And I wanted to sort of hear these stories. I wanted to hear some of these inspiring tales. And, you know, I'm so glad I did it, because there's such amazing stories out there that I've gotten the opportunity to listen to and engage with these people. But I think the sort of common thread that I found across all these stories is that everybody fails.
Sure.
Right? And I think that's the part. You know, I'll always go back to, I have this very close friend. He's one of my best friends. And at a particular time in my life when I was a little bit down because things just weren't going in the direction I thought I'd go in. I think one of the things I told him is, look, I don't like comparing myself to other people. And I'm not really a jealous person, right, by nature. But you see all this stuff on social media. And I saw all these buddies of mine talking about like LinkedIn. Like you said, best example. We're proud to announce this. And I was like, wow, man, things are just like, what did I do wrong?
Sure.
And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, you got to realize something. Nobody posts anything bad on social media. People only post the good, right? So you could probably post a whole lot of things and everybody would look at you saying, oh my God, this guy is doing so well and he's so successful. And they might feel the same way about you, right? And I think that's the common thread, is that we see all these amazing stories and we see these great businesses, but we don't see the behind the scenes of it. And the behind the scenes are very, very difficult. They're very drastically different. There's a lot of years. One of the guys on the podcast actually said, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success. I love that. Right? Because essentially that's the truth, right? We all look at it like, oh man, I wish I thought about that business. Damn, this guy's doing so well.
Oh, I wish I thought of that. Oh, that one's signature.
But at the end of the day, this guy probably had 5 or 6 businesses he tried before then.
They all failed.
Yeah. And, and I think that's something is we all kind of afraid to say it out loud. I had a guest, and all honesty, this is probably my favorite guest, because I called him onto the podcast and I had a plan of what we were going to talk about. I had no idea the direction this podcast was going to take. Right. And when we started the episode, I was just like, okay, this guy started a very interesting business. The guy's business at the time, well, still is now, he repairs paddle rackets.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so I was just going to talk to him about, okay, how did you get into this business? And paddle is blowing up, and very
perfect
great
timing.
of you, perfect timing. Yeah. And his story shocked me. His story was on how he literally lost everything, and he loved playing paddle, and he didn't have any money to buy or let alone hire a racket, and his racket was broken. And so he fixed his racket so he could play paddle with his buddies. Sure. But what I loved is this guy was so open. Not a lot of people have that courage, man. Not a lot of people have that courage to come on like a podcast or a TV show and just say, I had bill collectors at my door. Sure. I didn't have anything. Yeah. And you won't believe it. In the week after that, when he and I were chatting, he was telling me about all these messages, and I got it on my social media. All these messages that were coming through is that thank you for sharing. I'm in the exact same position. We're so happy that you could say this, because I found it so difficult to say this out loud. And you realize there's so many people in that position. Yes, you get these awesome people that struck lightning and, decided to do this and took off. Great. We speak about Steve Jobs, right? Yes, his first product was amazing. He shot the lights out with the Apple I and the Apple II. Guess what happened after that? He made the Lisa, complete failure. He made the Macintosh.
What's the Lisa? Huh? I've never heard of that. You see?
So Steve Jobs, when Apple II was like the biggest thing that launched Apple, right? That became the cornerstone of their business for years, and actually ended up also being the downfall of Apple at a certain time. It's actually a very fascinating story. Sure. Steve Jobs then went on to his next project, because he was always the let's keep innovating, let's keep doing things differently. And he came up with this next project called the Lisa, and he wanted to make it so perfect, right?
Specs and all that.
Yeah, and nothing was going right, and it ended up being a complete failure. Then he went on and did the Macintosh. The Macintosh was going to be the computer that changed the world, right? Lo and behold, they launched the Macintosh, complete failure. Yeah. Right? ended up getting him. I mean, there's a very deep, long story behind this, and I encourage people to go watch it. I love it.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting then kicked out of Apple, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Years later, he managed to come back in. But all of that in between, we think of Steve Jobs and we think of the iPod and we think of the iMac and we think of the iPhone, and those were great. But there were years where he just failed. You know what I mean? And that's sort of the common trend that we see among so many people, is that there is that failure. People are just terrified to say it out loud. And the problem a lot of the time that happens is people are so terrified of failure that they end up not starting.
Yeah.
You know? The podcast took me years to start. Because I was terrified of what people are going to say, what people are going to think. What if I do it wrong? What if it fails? And I was at a stage of my life where I was at sort of like this crossroads in my career. And I needed to decide what to do next. And I actually went to this therapist who does this career counseling with therapy.
Okay.
And she asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I really want to start a podcast. And although I had to, obviously, I carried on with my actual career. I stayed in auditing because obviously I need to feed my family and I need to put a roof over our heads.
Yeah.
But I sort of said, you know what? I'm going to do something that I want to do always. And I don't care if one person watches it or 1,000 people watch it. I don't care if I earn anything from it. I'm going to, and I always say this about the podcast, I say it's my gift to myself.
Sure.
Because I started it because, it needed for me to get into that place to start it, to say, you know what? I'm going to do it because I really want to do it. I don't care if it succeeds. I don't care if it fails. I just want to do something for me. And I was able to start it after years of thinking about it because I was not afraid to fail. Because even if it failed, it didn't matter. The success was me doing
Starting.
Yeah. And that's all that mattered.
Wow. Everybody fails. I've quoted you here. Everybody fails. It's funny, like you've been interviewing quote unquote successful people, haven't you? But that's the lesson.
Yeah, 100%. Most of them, yeah. I mean, some and like I said, there's really inspiring stories out there. We just need to hear them. And there's a lot of people that want to share these stories. I mean, perfect example. People probably looked at my story and said, "Oh, look at that guy! He only did 2 years of articles, right?
Yeah, true.
How lucky is that guy?" And then I'm sitting here like 6 years later, going, "Guys, don't do that ever. That was the biggest mistake I ever had."
Don't do it.
I mean, we don't realize that. All we see is the glitz and glamour, but unfortunately, it's the truth. People fail, man. It's a natural progression.
It's a natural progression. You also started a consulting company called You Hate Admin. I can kind of it's spelled like this, guys. UH8 admin. You hate admin. Okay, I can already kind of piece together like what the value is, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so honestly, You Hate Admin was on my mind for a very, very long time.
Sure.
And
when did you start it as well?
So I actually wanted to start it about 2-3 years ago, and I think we got my wife and I are doing it together.
Sure.
And we got the company registered, I think 2-3 years ago.
Sure.
And then it just, at the time I was still working as an auditor. So I was working remotely for this firm in the US, right?
Yes.
And so this was something I was looking at. It was an idea that I had that has actually kind of evolved a little bit now. So the initial idea was around doing remote admin work for companies that are not big enough to sort of have their own HR department or have their own admin department. And, we thought we'd tap into that market of remote HR, remote admin, remote personal assistant, because, hey, I'd love to have a personal assistant, but I mean, I'm not in the financial capacity to do one. I can't pay somebody, 15, 20,000 Rand, even more a month. But hey, I could maybe pay this company 1,000 to 2,000 rand a month and have somebody, I can send a task to and they can help me with. But it's actually evolved a little bit, and so where I am right now, I actually stopped auditing last year in November. My contract with my firm in the US came to an end. And so, as you mentioned, a little bit of figuring out the next steps, but sort of has evolved into a little bit around controls, internal controls.
Okay.
And where that comes from is, looking at, these days you'd see there's a lot of fractional CFOs out there, right? There's a lot of people that are doing outsourced accounting and fractional CFOs, fractional FMs. And I thought that was maybe a little bit overtraded, but I didn't see a lot of fractional internal auditors rather. And I think there's, and our goal here is to sit down with a lot of small to medium companies, essentially those companies that are small but knocking on the door of a medium company. And the whole thing here is, right, when you in a startup company, you just focused on growth. And then that's what you need to do, right? That's the way it is. You focused on growth. You want to try and get the company as successful as possible, as quick as possible, and make it into a success. And then when it does become a success, and when it starts knocking on the door of that medium company, the thing is, now you need to start putting in processes and controls, because a lot of these companies have been 1 to 2 man shops, and now you got a 10 or 15 staff team. And unfortunately, there's a lot of gaps in those internal controls. So what we do is we sit down with companies. We essentially go through the entire processes. We walk through their controls, and we kind of identify where there's either controls missing or where there is controls that are not maybe effectively implemented or designed. One of the great things I learned in my articles was around the design of controls, because when we think of controls, everybody sort of goes with, okay, is our controls being implemented? But I'm sure you in auditing now hear the dreadful word DNI.
It's so funny. I'm literally doing DNI right now.
Yeah. It's awful. And everybody sort of doesn't think of the D in the DNI, the design part. And that's the thing, is that if the control is not designed effectively, it can be implemented every single day, but if it hasn't been designed well enough, it might not be achieving what you think it's achieving. So our model is to go down, we sit down with companies, we do an entire walkthrough of all their processes. Currently working with a manufacturing company right now where we're doing this service for them. And, we walk through your entire processes, and then we kind of just help you design controls, implement controls. Where there isn't any controls, let's put some in. And yeah, that's the aspect. So the whole thing is that, you hate the admin, we'll do it for you.
Yeah. Fractional IA. That is so cool. That, like, I think it's like, for me, it's inspiring just to say, if you have these thoughts, because you saw that there were many fractional FMs, fractional CFOs, fractional accountants. There weren't fractional IAs. Consider that as even a kind of, I like to think of strategies for thinking.
Yeah.
It's a great thinking strategy of like, okay, there's a lot of these. What is a slight variant that becomes different and is differentiated? And that's definitely, like I heard this other quote the other day, that innovation today, especially because so many things have already been made, is not creating something new, but just doing the same things in a new way.
Yeah, very true. Talking about quotes, one of my favorite quotes that I've heard recently was stagnation equals to regression.
Yeah.
And kind of saying the same thing you are, that if you kind of doing things the same way, you're actually moving backwards, right? So you need to kind of think of new ways to do things. You kind of need to innovate. And so, we're hoping that this is sort of like, this is something that I've had on my mind for quite some time. I launched it at the beginning of this year.
Sure.
We're working with our first client at the moment. And hopefully we can build it into something much bigger.
That is, I can't wait to see the progress, man. You also recently left corporate. What has been the inspiration for these bold moves away out of the mold?
Well, I think in all honesty, it's more just necessity than anything else.
Sure.
So as I mentioned earlier, right, I had this big goal of moving overseas, right? When I moved to London, as I mentioned earlier in the story, the beginning of my career in London was not great because of the whole situation, right? And so I kind of always found myself on the back foot there. But while I was there, I really just didn't enjoy working in the company that I was working for. I just wasn't very happy with the culture. Look, I had made my share of mistakes. I'm not claiming to be innocent in that story at all. I did a lot of wrong in that story as well. But just wasn't enjoying it. So it was during COVID where things got really, really tough. And COVID obviously was a really big test for most of us. And at the end of that year, I just went, you know what, I really don't want to do this anymore. And especially with this company, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not in a great place. I'm depressed. I'm just not mentally happy. And so I resigned from that company. I did a bit of a risky thing because if I just backtrack there, it was 2020 in September where I just decided, okay, you know what, I got to put this to bed now.
2020,
yeah,
COVID.
Okay. Sort of as we're getting out that first batch
just
of COVID.
Out of it, yeah.
And so I resigned from this company in January of 2021. And why I waited so long is I was looking for another job because obviously in the UK you needed to be sponsored to be there and all that jazz. And I actually got a job with another Big Four firm, but they had this thing where they were creating like a pipeline, right, of recruits, so that when they had a position, they didn't have to go and interview people and everything like that. They just had people ready. And so although I got an offer letter and everything from them, there was no official start date of that job. So I was waiting for the start date. January comes and I'm like really not in a great place. So I kind of take this calculated risk and I say, okay, I'm going to resign. I got 3 months of notice. I got to serve 3 months notice. So I'm going to resign in the hope that at the end of that 3 months, the other job kind of comes through. That was not a very great idea because the first month goes, nothing happens. Second month goes, nothing happens. Now I'm starting to get really nervous. And so what I did is because of COVID, there's a company in South Africa called Makosi. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes.
They used to do secondments for people to the US. But because of COVID and nobody was allowed to fly and everything, they started doing remote secondments. So I kind of went, okay, cool. I'm not going to have a job in a couple of weeks' time. If I sign up for these guys, I can kind of fill that gap until the other job comes through. So I can do a virtual secondment. And I did that. And lo and behold, they seconded me to this firm that I absolutely loved. Really enjoyed working for them. It was this firm in the US called Frank Rimman. Great culture. It was very, very different from, the kind of thing I just wanted to get away from. And so jumped onto that, right? And in that time, sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second because there's a message coming through on my phone right now and it's irritating me.
Through the Ray-Bans.
Through the Ray-Bans, yeah.
Yeah, he's wearing Ray-Ban content glasses. You know the ones that you can film stuff with. It's cool.
Yeah. So where was I?
You had Frank.
So while I was waiting for this other job to come through, the firm in the US actually offered me a permanent position. And I always wanted to go live in the US. Like I really wanted to go live in the US. I don't know why, there was a great pull towards there. And not only were they offering me a job, they were actually going to sponsor me a green card.
Oh, wow.
And so, but unfortunately, the schlep there was that I couldn't live in the UK because I needed to be working in the UK per my visa. So we packed up, we came back to South Africa, and I started working remotely for this firm.
Sure. For the US firm.
For the US firm, yeah. Really enjoyed working there. And Worked there for about 2 to 3 years. The visa process, unfortunately, also because of COVID, because of the backlogs that COVID created, just took extremely long.
Sure.
But along the way, there was a personal matter that happened that just made it not really great to move to the US anymore. It wasn't feasible for us to move to the US anymore. And so I decided, okay, cool. You know what? Sat down with my family. My wife and I took the decision that, you know what, this is probably not the best thing for our family anymore. And so we decided not to do that. And so at that time, I kind of knew that my time with the US firm, although I carried on working for them, I kind of knew that there was always a end date there.
Sure.
Because number one, and I've always looked at things this way, right? Is you got to look at it from both sides. You got to look at it from my person side, and the side from me personally was, because I was not going to be moving to the US, I was going to be stuck in that position. And although it was I enjoyed the work, the pay was amazing, it was going to be an audit manager for as long as I worked there. I could never ever move up because I was not going to be a resident in the US. So I was there, right? That's my side. But from the company's side, you got to look at it from their side as well, is, hey, we got a guy that can't move up. We got a guy here that's great. I mean, he's working for us. He's in SA. Everything is working great. But I mean, we should also spend our resources towards somebody that we can groom into maybe being a partner one day, or somebody that can come into office every day and that sort of thing. So I kind of knew that there was always that end date. And that's when I started thinking, okay, cool. What's my next sort of steps? That's where the podcast actually was born. Because when I was looking at the next steps, that's when that whole conversation happened. And that's where U8 Admin also started coming into frame. The reason why we only kind of started this year is because, unfortunately, it was sort of like an endless loop, right? I wanted to start something new so that I could eventually leave the US job. But I couldn't start something new because the US job was keeping me so busy. So it was sort of like that never-ending loop. And then last year, September, the firm called me and just said, look, your contract is coming to an end. Because of the fact that you're not moving here, they had a new managing partner that was trying to steer the firm from remote working into more in-office working more frequently. It just didn't fit the mold anymore. And in the sense of, hey, we can probably have somebody, again, if you look at it from their perspective, we could probably have somebody that we're paying that can come here every day. I mean, you can't really blame them with that sort of thought. And so, that journey sort of came towards an end. So, going back to your question, I don't think it was ever something that I'm looking at saying, okay, I'm going to be innovative and I'm going to try new things. It just it's more out of necessity how sort of things just flow. And I'm a very, very firm believer in whatever is meant for you. From our religious aspect, in the Islamic culture, we have this word called taqdeer, which essentially says whatever is meant for you will happen. Whatever is written will happen for you. And I sort of kind of go with that, is that, okay, you know what? This is the next path. This is what's sort of meant for me. Obviously, I'm never going to just sit back and say, okay, yeah, whatever is meant for me will happen. I don't have to worry. I don't have to go to work. You got to kind of do your job. You got to kind of put in the effort from your side. So, right now, trying a few different things, working a bit in family business as well, doing a little consultancy thing. The podcast, again, is more of a passion project. I wouldn't say it's really a career as yet. Love it to be one day, and love it to grow into that, because I've always been very, very passionate about that industry. But yeah, sort of just going with the flow and finding the next steps.
Sure, man. Sure. Necessity is always a factor. That's something that I think in the modern day we can sometimes forget. We're kind of aware of it in South Africa because of, obviously, in Africa in general, we have a lot of challenges to overcome from a modernity and modernization and just like infrastructure, all these types of things. But it's always a true thing. On the podcast, from actually what you've been doing over the past year, interviewing these people, have there been any transferable skills or lessons from the podcast to your other work?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, if we look at if we look at the controls aspect as we're talking right now, right? I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people, going back to the podcast, you got to realize the way I always look at it, right, is the podcast is sort of my story in just a whole lot of different versions, right?
Okay.
And when I approach guests, I sort of always go with this three sort of philosophies of people that I'd like to talk to, right? Number one is somebody that's trying to do something a little bit out the box, or somebody that's pushing the boundaries, right? Let's look at me. I'm this auditor that has a passion for public speaking and passion for doing things out of the box, right? Great. Second criteria, or rather preferable person, is somebody that's created their own brand, whether it be a personal brand like a social media influencer or an actual business brand. Great. I have this podcast and this personal brand called EBT that we're trying to, build into the successful podcast called Chat EBT. So I'm trying to build that brand. And on the other side, I got this consulting business that I'm trying to kick off the ground called U8 Admin, and I'm trying to build that brand. And the third is around people that have pivoted in their careers. Similar here. Hey, I've been an auditor for 10 years and now I'm trying to start up a whole new career. I need to do a complete pivot because I've worked in corporate my entire life. Now I'm trying to be an entrepreneur on the one side. I'm trying to be a podcast / journalist / presenter on the other side.
Yeah.
And so if you look at it that way, it's sort of like my big therapy session, if you want to look at it, right? I get to talk to people that have done the things that I really would love to do.
Yeah.
And in that, you're hearing all these stories of people that have pivoted in their careers, people that went completely one direction for so many years and all of a sudden decided, okay, cool, we're going to do this now. People that have created these brands that are amazing brands, And so in talking to them, I get to learn all of these sort of experiences that they had and sort of try and pull that into what I'm trying to do right now and learn from some of the mistakes that they probably have made. Similar to what we're trying to do here, right? You're trying to create this platform so that essentially at the beginning it was talking to people to say, hey guys, it's okay to fail. Like it happens. You can dust yourself off. Yeah, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. I'm in that same place that says, okay, cool. I want to hear these stories and I can listen to these people's experiences and mistakes and I can learn from them in my own businesses, in my own brand journey, and figure out what direction I want to take. I can listen to different people's business ideas and kind of say, okay, you know what? I really love the way that guy manages people. I want to try and implement that little piece there. And those are the things that, again, if we go back to that article conversation, right, is that you got to kind of look at everything around you and take little small pieces from whoever you can, because you're going to meet so many different people with so many different experiences and so many different techniques. You need to build yourself. Yeah, you can't copy Ebrahim Tayob. Like, yeah, he's really successful. Oh, bad example with me, but let's copy XYZ because they've done everything right in their lives, but your personality might not match that person, right? But you get to take away little pieces.
What you can, what you want.
Going back to what we said about working with different partners. I worked with partners that were super detailed, that opened up every single work paper that was in the audit file and went through it with a fine comb.
Yeah. Every single one.
Yeah. And then I worked with partners that literally said, I need to see this section, this section, this section. I don't care about anything else.
Sure.
Not that either of them were wrong. They both just had different approaches, but you get to pick which one you want to kind of take or which one you want to kind of follow. I learned the way I speak in meetings from all the different people that I've been in meetings with and all the different methods that they used. And I've sort of come up with my own method when I'm in meetings because of all the different experiences that I had. So, if you talk about transferable skills in that, it might not be taking this exact thing and putting it there. It's more like, hey, I can take bits and pieces from everybody and learn from mistakes, learn from things that they do right, things that they do wrong, small little ticks here and there, and just take it from there. And I think we always say like we never stop learning, and I know it's that little throwaway line, right? We never stop learning.
Lifelong learning.
Yeah. And but it's honestly if you stop learning, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
We learn every day, man. We learn from everything we watch, from everything we see, and we just get to take the best part about it is we get to take the little different things away from everything.
Yeah, take what you want.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think but I think the transferability of it all, I think one thing about conversation is just it's so brilliant as a tool for learning.
Yeah.
I think of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but some wisdom that I got from this 17th century Jesuit priest, Baltasar Gracia, and he was a Spanish Jesuit priest, like a Jesuit priest at the end of the Spanish Empire around. And basically he said that there's such power in mixing the pleasure of conversation and the usefulness of learning.
Yeah.
It's a podcast for me. It's like the only way to just be, because we like to talk to people. Like we like to be with, especially people that we like, of course. Yeah. Like not even introverts like to talk to the people that they like. Obviously we also like our alone times if you're an introvert, but there's that usefulness of knowledge. And when you can find a medium where fun meets utility, you found that brilliant medium, which I think podcasting is.
Yeah, very true.
And I think if you want to start a podcast, guys, like I think there's clear inspiration and clear, I would say, proof that you should just do it. You should just do it.
I think it's a sense of just following your passions.
Yeah,
right? And I think it's it's an overrated term, right?
Yeah, another one of those. Yeah,
but
like be yourself,
follow your passion. One of the phrases I absolutely loved. I've used this so many times. So the people that have seen this, apologies. I know I use it way too much because I know I had it in one of my podcasts and I had it as a clip on social media.
Sure.
Right. But I always go back to this. Jim Carrey. Right.
Okay.
Jim Carrey is one of the best comedians in the world. Right. He'll always be up there for me because he was just amazing. Especially when I was young, he was like the pinnacle. Right. Jim Carrey one day at one of these university addresses. So he was giving like a keynote speech.
Yes.
Right? And he spoke about his dad. Right. And the story he told here is that, and you're going to find this very ironic to our story, mine especially. But the story he told here is that his dad was probably one of the funniest people he's ever met. Now, Jim Carrey is saying that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
wow.
Yeah. His dad wanted to be a comedian, right? But he decided to take the safe option and get a real job. And guess what? He became an accountant.
Sure.
Right?
That's funny.
Irony at its best here, right?
Yeah.
And a little way down the road, he got retrenched.
Sure.
And this threw the Carrey family into almost poverty and very, very difficult times. And I'll never forget, Jim Carrey utters this line as sort of like the final line of the address. And he said, I learned a lot of things from my father. I learned a lot of lessons from my father. But the most important one is this. And as I'm saying this, like you can even see I get goosebumps every time I talk about this. Right? Sure. The most important lesson that I've learned from my father was this. You can fail doing the safe thing you don't want to do.
Sure.
So you might as well do what you love. Right? Now, in saying that, I'm not saying quit your job and go and follow whatever passion you have. Because, yes, you need to obviously follow your passion. You need to do what makes you very, very happy. Unfortunately, a lot of the time that not always gets you paid. Or, you can't always, feed your family or put a roof over your head. But that doesn't mean you can't do it, right? Going back to what I said about the podcast was essentially that it was a passion project. It was the gift to myself, because I always wanted to do this. As I went along in my life, I probably have realized quite a few times that maybe auditing wasn't the best career option for me, for my personality and the person, that I am and have become. But it's given me a great life, right? Have I always been happy doing it? Not necessarily. So guess what? Let me do something that makes me really, really happy. I don't have to turn it into a full-time job or career, but I can sit down and do it occasionally and have that amazing opportunity to do something I absolutely love. And so even if it means just as a hobby, if it means, you doing it in your spare time, if you want to start that business and, follow your passion, man, because most of the time what you're really passionate about, it shows in your work. It shows in who you are, if you're not passionate about something, it is very, very difficult to become successful in that. I've never thought of myself as a great auditor. The part of my job that I always thought I excelled in was talking to clients. I love talking to clients because honestly, that's what my passion is. My passion is speaking, right? So the part I excelled most of in my job was the speaking part of it. And that's why I say, follow your passion. Your passion, it's an amazing thing. Even if it's just a hobby, or even if it's just a side gig, or even if it's just a podcast, do it because you love it, man.
Give yourself the gift.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Wow, man. If you could go back to first year, second year, maybe even high school Ebrahim, what would you tell him?
There's a lot of things, right? I would say that. I would say, listen. So, two things, very, very importantly. Number one is be yourself, right? Because that's the most important thing you can do for yourself is be yourself. Don't try and fit into a mold, because you're not going to fit into that mold. Be who you want to be, and if people don't like it, they're not the right people. You're going to find people that love you for being you, and so don't ever hesitate from doing that. And the other thing is follow your passion, follow your dreams, follow your passion. Even in any way, shape, or form, do it, because that's going to make you happy. You're going to carry that into everything else in your life, right? Whether it be your career, whether it be your family, you're just going to carry that passion through everything. So do it at whatever cost you can.
Be yourself and follow your passion. Wow. I think it's all just come round full circle. I feel like that has been, you've actually summarized the whole episode, the whole interview. You've actually summarized, guys, basically be yourself and follow your passion. If you have not already, please follow this. Check out Chat EBT. It's linked in the show notes. Check out Ebrahim. Our link is LinkedIn in the show notes as well. I think, man, you've left us with some formative lessons on the road. And I thank you, man. I really do. Thank you for your true spirit. I think you lead your life with your heart on your sleeve, and it shows. The passion shows. If you have not already, again, follow this. I hope it does not end, but that it begins in CASA. Ebrahim, thank you.
No, it was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for, number one, thank you for doing this. Number one, for yourself. Sorry, I say number one a lot. But thank you for doing this for yourself. But also, I'm sure that the listeners are getting so much inspiration. And that's the whole thing, right? It goes back to what I said. I want to share these stories. In my show, I want to share these stories with the hope that somebody somewhere takes something away from it. And coming on today's show is, number one, because I know you have that same passion. I know that's the goal that you have as well. And if my story can inspire anybody, if it can inspire one person, that's great. That's good enough for me, man. And so thank you for creating this channel and creating this opportunity for people to come out here and tell their stories. That's the life is, as I said, life is full of our stories, man. The only thing we're going to take away at the end is our stories and our memories.
Yeah.
So let's share them, and hopefully people can take away some insights, and people can have fun along the way. So thank you, more importantly.
Thank you, man.